Welcome to Westside. Our family is wide open to people from all walks of life and spiritual backgrounds. All of us were far from God once, but we're called into His family. On a journey to discover a life full of meaning, with Jesus at the center of all things. We gather to discover our calling, scatter to live it out. One church, one mission. Multiple locations with a single pursuit, to impact Kansas City and beyond. Loving Jesus in response to His first love, becoming like Jesus by the power of God's Spirit, sharing Jesus because He is the hope of the world. What if a church led by prayer, united for something greater, became kingdom risk-takers to reveal the life found in the Bible, to wrap around the lost, the last and the least in our city and around the world, to love and serve our neighbors, to build Christ-centered families. We will not rest until everyone knows they are loved as Christ has loved us. Westside Family Church. Loving Jesus, becoming like Jesus, sharing Jesus. We go further together.
Let's stand to our feet. Let's have a good time with Jesus. Your word is the lamp unto my feet. Your way is the only way for me. It's a narrow road that leads to life, but I want to be on it. It's a narrow road, but the mercy's wide, 'cause you're good on your promise. Yeah, I'll take you at your word. If you said it, I'll believe it. I'll see how good it works. If you started, you'll complete it. I'll take you at your word. Oh, yeah. You spoke and the chaos fell neighbor, tell your neighbor, his word is enough for me. His word is enough for me. Come on, look at your neighbor, tell him his word is enough for me. His word is enough for me. Welcome to Westside Family Church. So glad that you are here online. Hello in the room. So glad that you have joined us. We are still in Unshakable, and we are talking about solid rock desire. Dan Deeble is bringing the word. Go ahead and have a seat. The word of the Lord is coming.
Welcome to Westside. Thanks for gathering with us today. So much happens here every week. Stay in the know about the activities that matter most to you and your family. The best way to stay informed is to download the Westside app found in any app store. There you can access notes for the message today, find details about upcoming events, and so much more. Or if you're more of a Cliff Notes person, receive a weekly summary of the current Westside news and events directly to your inbox. Sign up for the weekly newsletter at westsidefamily.church/enews.
The Westside Essentials are unique, multi-week experiences designed to help you grow Christ-like relationships, character, and service. If you're new to Westside or thinking about making Westside your home, we hope you'll join us for Get Connected on Sunday mornings during the first 3 weeks of every month.
And if you're ready to gain a deeper understanding of God's Word, where it came from, and how to read it, don't miss This is a Bible. This 6-week essential begins November 12th and is perfect for both beginners and longtime Bible readers. So, to sign up or learn more about these and other upcoming essentials experiences, visit westsidefamily.church/essentials.
37 million people in America, including 1 in 6 children, live at or below the poverty line. On Saturday, November 11th, the Cost of Poverty experience comes to Westside. This unique, immersive experience gives participants a first-hand understanding of the complexity of poverty through the eyes of real families. Parents, please be advised this is not an experience intended for children. High school-aged kids are welcome to attend with a parent. Registration for this powerful event is required and space is limited. Sign up to attend today at westsidefamily.church/community-impact. Registration is open now for 2024 Global Impact trips. If you're ready to deepen your faith in Jesus, experience unmatched spiritual growth, and exercise compassion and care for some of the most incredible people on the planet, don't miss this opportunity. Whether it's Guatemala, a trip to the US-Mexico border, Southeast Asia, Mexico, or South Africa, these trips will inspire and deepen your faith. Our annual Global Impact trips are part of Westside's Unshakable initiative and mission by wrapping God's family around others. Discover life through the eyes of another culture and experience something truly extraordinary. Visit westsidefamily.church/trips for more details on these exciting opportunities today.
We actually found Westside when our kids were little, elementary school and toddler, in 2005. And we were at the old building on Monticello and started there. And then as they grew, we moved to this building and began middle school years and elementary school years. And
we got involved in the student ministries and worked with the different ages there. And our son graduated in 2020, the year of the pandemic, from high school. And as we were coming out of that, God kind of moved us to another place, and so we were been another church for the last 3 years, and we worked a lot with young adults there. That journey came to an end, and we had maintained our relationships at Westside here, and began to speak to some of our friends, pray about it, and felt like God was leading us back here. We weren't sure why.
And I really think what's cool when we look back is that 3 years that we were away really did equip us for this next stage, I feel, of ministry. It's an unknown, but it's so exciting how God did equip us in that time away.
Yeah,
I couldn't see it then, but I see it now.
Yeah.
And so that's really exciting to know that equipping occurred because of our obedience.
Jennifer and I really are the benefit of not just my parents and her parents giving, but my grandparents were givers. My mom's parents in particular served.
Yes, I'm so grateful for the example my mother and father-in-law set that I got to witness as kind of an outsider But then as getting married and coming into the family and seeing all that they do, ultimately without recognition for the kingdom of God, is truly our heart.
Yes.
Is from day one, 30 years
Yes.
ago, to have that heart of generosity to bless others.
Right. It's something we've seen modeled by our parents and grandparents, so it's really come down through the generations for us. And our kids are included in that right now. We want our kids.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're
Absolutely.
young, you're younger, and we want our kids to catch that and understand how cool it is to be a part of this line of people that have just said, hey, I can't outgive God. So when we returned to Westside and God brought us back here, we began to get involved, and we're seeing this unshakable stuff, and we've seen it through some of our friends and everything, but we weren't sure what that was completely. So we asked Shelly Arnold. She explained everything to us, and it created excitement in us.
Yes.
And being back here at Westside now, and being able to make our first time commitment to Unshakable and become a part of this thing that's so much
Yes.
bigger than us.
Even
is very
for the
exciting.
last year.
Yeah, even if it's
You
just
know?
the last year, is exciting because we see the things that are out there that we're trying to accomplish as a body of Christ. If you're a first-time commitment, just trust God to jump in where you can jump in, and let Him increase the level of comfort that you have.
Yes.
The level of commitment you want to make, but just start today and just do it. And the benefits that you get, again, peace of mind, joy, provision, happiness, a sense of belonging, right? A sense of you're doing something that matters. And we are, because this care center will change lives. The communities and all the different neighborhoods are changing lives. We're being Jesus in our neighborhood. So if you're first time, just jump in and go. Trust God.
Yeah.
All right. How are you today? Yeah, great to be with you, Wes. I love the story. I'm seeing somebody going like, I'm all right. Thank you for the honesty. Hey, I want to thank the Jones family for just offering their story of how they made their first commitment. Yeah, thank you for that. Grateful. Hey, I love that they just did one thing. They showed up. They said, hey, we haven't been around for like 3 years. What is this thing? They just asked. And I just appreciate that, like, hey, that's not the thing they're doing. That's the thing we want to lock arms and do. And whether you are a Westsider and you've been for a while, but you missed last year's commitment or whatever else, or you're new and you're like, hey, what is this? Because this is the journey that we're on, and want you to lock arms with us. Last week, we kicked off the series called Rock Solid. And I was driving on the way to church with my family, which is kind of rare. I had been a pastor for many years where I taught just about every Sunday, and I never got to go to church with my family. Never got to do the minivan drive to church. Turns out that's kind of a wild thing. and so last week, it was like that, hey, what series are we? There's some new series, and someone says, oh, it's called Rock Solid. Oh, okay, and then our shoot 'em straight daughter from the back goes, oh no, this is about money. And they're like, oh, it's about like the unshakable. No, it's about money, she says. Just calling it straight. I'm like, oh, I guess this is kind of like what gets talked about on the way to church, you know? And so I just want to ask right out of the gate, is this series about money? Yes, it is. No, it's not. It's both. And by jumping into the scriptures, I think we'll see what we mean by that. So look with me here, 2 Corinthians chapter 8. The Apostle Paul is making an appeal to a few different churches. He's writing to a church in Corinth, and he's asking them to bring their resource to the church in Jerusalem. Why Jerusalem? They are actually nicknamed the poor because many of them have been losing their jobs because they have been proclaiming Christ in their lives. They had been scattered, persecuted, and there was a great famine going on. So there was great physical needs that the Apostle Paul was trying to meet in this moment for them, and also spiritual needs as well. So Paul is writing a whole nother church in a whole different place, hundreds, thousands miles away, the church of Corinth, and he's asking them for their resource, but there's more going on beneath the surface. So look with me, verse 7, chapter 8, 2 Corinthians. But since you, Paul writes, excel in everything, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in complete earnestness, and in the love we have kindled in you, see that you also excel in the grace of giving. Paul is going, look, I'm seeing all this growth, I'm seeing all this fruit, I'm seeing this movement in your life. It's beautiful, but don't let this generosity component of giving lag behind. We want to be holistic followers of Jesus. He continues on, and he says, I'm not commanding you, but I want to test the sincerity of your love by comparing it with the earnestness of others. For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. How about this for the ultimate comparison? Let's just look at Jesus. That though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you, through his poverty, might become rich. That's kind of like the ultimate mic drop right there. It's like, is Jesus generous? Okay, I guess we should all get on board. And here is my judgment, Paul says, verse 10, about what is best for you in this matter. Last year, and this is what we're really going to key in on. I think this is fascinating. Last year, you were the first, not only to give, but also to have the desire to do so. You ever notice there's a difference between giving and the desire to give? Yes, there is. Now finish the work, he says, so that your eager willingness to do it may be matched by your completion of it. And then he says, according to your means. There is a tension between the desire and the finishing. Paul is just naming this. And then in between, we give, right? We give resources, we give time, we give all sorts of things. And there is a tension. Some of us get really excited about giving, and then we maybe start, or maybe we didn't even start, but we certainly don't finish, and that's a challenge. Others of us, we go, well, we give, but we weren't happy about it. Do I speaketh the trutheth at all in terms of what we're feeling, right? Absolutely. Now, what's Paul doing? And what would it have been like for the people in Corinth to have received this letter? I bet all sorts of things were raging within them. And I bet many of them like, well, we kind of had a desire, but I don't know. We had other priorities. We had other things going on in our lives. What is Paul really trying to accomplish here? Well, at the deepest level, here's what's happening. Paul is feeling called to the non-Jewish world. That's called Gentiles. And he's speaking predominantly to that group in the church of Corinth, Macedonia, and the other places where he's asking other churches to collect their resources and bring them to the church in Jerusalem. The church in Jerusalem is predominantly Jewish. So yes, while Paul is trying to meet physical needs, people are suffering, people have lost jobs, people need food on the table, he's actually going after something far deeper, which is what? To drive a radical stake in the ground to say the whole world is at enmity with one another. And the Jews and the Gentiles, by the way, does it sound familiar? Tragically so, yes it does. And Paul is saying, if the Gentile world, who were at enmity with the Jews, who have always been considered the scumbags of the earth by even the Jewish mindset, if they would give of their resource radically, even according to their means and in some ways beyond their means, do you know what a statement that would make? A radical commitment of unity in this new formed thing called the people of Jesus. I think that's what Paul is going after, collectively at the highest kind of meta level, and then individually what it's going to do in them. And that's why we love what's going on with Unshakable. I mean, you look here, by the way, you look through, how many of you got your little, incredible, it's not little, it's like impressively large and thick, and the paper is incredible. I mean, it's like this whole Unshakable. How many of you didn't receive this either last week or this week, and you don't really know about Unshakable? Anybody? Show of hands. Anybody? Nobody wants to show hands, but I want to throw this to you, so go ahead. Anybody? Yes, sir. Yes. Oh, that hits you. Anybody else want to be hit in the head? Because I got a second one. Yes, over there. I'm going to work on my Frisbee toss. All right, but if you do, we have folks that would love to come to you, so you don't have to. But if you want to do like Jeff and Jennifer Jones, and you're like, hey, what is this thing? Because I want to lock arms. There's so much to lock arms around that, yes, does require resource. But when you talk about the 7 area communities that are being launched, that's the church bringing physical, literal expression into our neighborhoods. Do you think that's what the church should be about? Yes. And do you think it should be about more than just actually a church meeting together? No, it's like who in those neighborhoods behind those doors need to see the love and the joy and the healing in their neighborhoods. And for the amount of church plants that are having hundreds of churches and house churches that are being planted around the world, and for the foster and the adoption communities and families that need to know that we have their back and they are not forgotten. And for the care and counseling center that we are building. Just last Sunday night, we had a prayer and dedication night. It was incredible. We met in here, had an incredible time with Austin French, then we went out to the southeast corner. And here's an aerial shot of it at night. We all had our flashlights, and we just prayed over this land. And we prayed kind of imaginatively for when these doors open, who are the people, who are the lives, what are the struggles, what are the hurts, what are the addictions, spiritual and physical, that are going to walk through these doors. And I sat there thinking about 2 people personally. One, I had been in a conversation with someone earlier this week, or that week. And this friend of mine needs help. He needs good therapy. And I thought about Westside, but then I thought, but he's not a member of Westside. So then I thought, what just went through my head? I thought, he doesn't go to Westside, so this wouldn't be a place for him. Does something about that sound so contrary to the gospel of Jesus to you? Do you know how many people are trying to find care and can't find it? Do you know how many people are on a wait list just to get into someone's door? Do you know how people are in desperate need to sit across from somebody that can expertly help them navigate the mental instability or the challenges or the unwellness of their mind? It's at pandemic levels. And there's another person that we as a family are in relationship with that's crossing state lines to find the right treatment place and center and all of these things, and experiencing all the gaps within the care structure, within government and all the different ways, the hospitals and everything else. And I sat there with my flashlight out there last Sunday night thinking this might not just be for our city. There might be people so hungry for hope and healing that they would travel hours, cross state lines, just to come through these doors as they open. And you tell me, is this just about money? Or is it about so much more? And we step back and we go, well, do I have the desire to give? Am I giving? What does it look like to finish the gift? And here's the thing. It is never a linear line between a desire to give and actually giving and finishing and completing the task, as Paul would say. You know what it looks like? It doesn't look like from here to here. It looks like this. Start out here. Yes, I'm going to do this. And then you go way down up here. This is what we just call the reality curve. And it works not just in terms of giving. It works on any grand adventure that you're wanting to set out. Maybe it's a startup. Maybe you're an entrepreneur. Maybe it's a new vision that you're chasing. Maybe you're an author and you want to bring something and publish it into the world. Maybe you're an inventor. Maybe it's just some new project that you're going to do. Here's the unshakable journey that we're on, and it looks like this. This is the emotional journey. And there's a few stops along the way. The first stop is from, yes, this is going to be awesome, let's go, to quickly uninformed, I don't have a lot of room, so it's going to be messy, uninformed optimism. What does this mean? This means you have no idea how hard it's going to be. And you think it's going to be great. But you're already sliding down the reality curve. Then you come to informed. What's the opposite of optimism? Pessimism. Oh, I didn't know it was going to be like this. I didn't know that we'd lose our job. I didn't know that the market would go down. I didn't know that we'd have to care for somebody that we brought into our home. I didn't know that college tuition was so high. All the things. But now we're a bit more informed about what it's going to take and require to get here. And that leads to what's simply called checkout. Was this right? Did we overcommit? Should we be doing this? Is this responsible? All these things. Now, Seth Godin would call this the dip, if you're a Seth Godin fan, and he would also say, there are some things in life where the quicker you can figure out this wasn't the right thing, you cut your losses. And yet, there are those things that is right, and that we push through, and we're faithful, and we come up kind of down through here, and God is forming, and God is maturating, and God is developing things in us. And if we're faithful there, we move to hopeful realism. Okay, I'm starting to see. I'm not seeing it all, but I have some hopeful realism. I'm seeing some things. There's some data here. It's starting to show, and then it leads up to, I'm just going to write momentous, big M, gains. Okay, now we're starting to get some traction. We got some momentum, and it leads up here to ultimately finishing, but it's always going to be different than you think when you started. The vision is right here. The actual reality is here, and it never looks exactly as you think, thank goodness. Because God is doing something in a people. God is bringing things. There are surprises and beauty and setbacks along the way. And I just want to ask you, as it relates to the unshakable journey, you can apply this to other things that you might be doing in your professional life or whatever it might be. But as it relates to unshakable, where are you? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand or anything, but I just want you to go, where am I? Am I in a place of discouragement? I thought it was going to be one thing, and now I'm starting, or am I really starting to ask questions? And if you are here, by the way, what I love about this, this is what it feels like. This is normative for the journey of any grand adventure, of which unshakable is, and of which your part is as well. This is a grand adventure. We don't exactly know the outcome, but we're committed to the journey, and this is what it feels like, and these are the stops along the way, and there's no shame in being at any one of these places. If you are here, I say, just do what Jeff and Jennifer Jones, they were checking in, right? But you might be going, I have some questions. Ask. Or you might be here and go, well, I thought it was going to be here. Lean in. And it's okay to be at any one of these places. Now I want to just say three things about this graph, about this passage. And the first is, if left to my own devices, I'm pretty sure I don't have a desire to give anything ever. In my own, natural orientation, I am not a generous man in a lot of things. When Paul writes in just chapter 9 here, you can look at it with me here. He talks about being a cheerful giver. Here's what he says. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. I hate that verse. I know it's the word of God, and I don't like it. Why? Because have you ever been told you will clean your room and you will like it? You will eat your vegetables and you will like it? That's what this feels like. You will give and you will like it. And I go, I don't know that I do like it. And I can fake it. And this is me being cheerful right now. You know that feeling, right? It's a little bit akin to this last summer. I was out in Long Beach, California on a business trip. My parents, they are 85 and 82 years of age. They live in Long Beach, California. And we went to In-N-Out Burger. Any In-N-Out Burger fans here? All right. You've been wondering this whole time. You haven't been listening to a thing I've been saying. You've been wondering about the bag. Yeah, so we go to In-N-Out. Here's a picture of Buddy and Papa. That's their grandparent names. And we go, this is actually right on the way out. We're on the way to the airport and flying out. And they say, oh, well, we're not hungry, but we'll make a stop for you. It's not my first stop of the trip, I'll tell you. And I got my typical. I got the 3x3. It's not the double-double. It's the triple-triple. I got 2 orders of fries. And then I got a chocolate shake. That's the standard. And my parents said, well, we'll get it for you. We're not hungry. We sit down, and my unhungry parents suddenly begin to hint that they're hungry. To which I reply, well, would you like a fry? Did you notice the singularity of the offer, a fry? And they say, sure. And so they with their little pincher, they grab one, and then they grab with 3, and then pretty soon it's hand over fist, and I can see the writing at the bottom of the tray that my fry count is just going down. Now on the outside, I'm trying to appear like the grateful son. On the inside, I am a bitter 50-year-old man. I mean, to my mother who bore me, to my dad who trained me, I am counting every single fry. Something has absolutely clinched inside of me. Now you step back, and I don't know when I stepped back, maybe when it was time to write this sermon, I stepped back and I thought, this is kind of ridiculous because those weren't really my fries. First of all, I did not put them on the tray. I did not salt them. I did not risk limb and life to put them in the sunflower oil. I did not slice them, which they do in the restaurant. I did not drive the truck of potatoes there. I'm not an Idaho farmer. I am none of those things. I have nothing really to do with potatoes. Here's a sack of them, right? If you think about potatoes, how many of you like potatoes? They're phenomenal, right? I mean, this is an incredible invention. What can you do with a potato? Tell me. Fries. What else? Anything, right? But work with me here. What else? Casseroles. Potato launcher. Right on. Right. Chips. Potato soup. Now's the season. I mean, there's so much that you can do with this. And I started thinking, yeah, well, did you know there's 5,000 different varieties of potatoes? Did you know that the potato was the first vegetable made in space? Did you know that? Did you know it can survive just about any climate? Began in the Andes Mountains in Central America. I mean, the potato is amazing. And you trace it all back to the dirt, to the fertile dark in which in 1 square inch of soil, there is over 1 billion microorganisms, and something flowers from this above ground, and down below, you dig your hands into the dirt, and you pull it out, and there is such amazing awesomeness in a potato. And it reminds me that all of life can be traced back to the dirt of the earth and the breath of life. That's what's said in the very beginning. From the most generous giver of all, the one out of his own heart and generosity, as it's so beautifully and poetically said. Look at this with me. Genesis chapter 2 says this, then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground, from the dirt, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. And it reminds me, this kind of like potato prayer, and all the things that I'm just holding on to, my time, my talent, my stuff, my finances, my bank account, all these kinds of things that I think are mine, that I'm clutching onto so tightly, trace it back, do the infinite regress, and you'll find that that too is traced back to the dirt of the earth and to the breath of life, namely the Creator, who is the most generous giver of all. Yes? Yes? And when we release and say, not mine, and God, you've given it to me, and we look at all of the things, will things happen in us? In fact, I would just put it this way, we become most like God when we give. See, we're going to have to decide, is God stingy, or is he the most ridiculously generous giver ever? And Paul answers that question, doesn't he? He answers that question in verse 9. for you know the grace means gift, of our Lord Jesus, that though he was rich, he had everything, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you through his poverty might become rich. As we go on this journey, we're not alone. As we go on this journey, God's with us, he's in us, he's ahead of us, and he's maturating something in you and I deep beneath the fertile soil. So that when we come up, the arrow doesn't stop here. It goes up there. And where's the growth? It's all right there in you and me and in us as a people. As we are faithful on this journey, you and I change. Yes, for all the impact. Yes, for all the lives. Yes, for all the hope and healing here, around the world, in our neighborhoods. Yes, yes, and yes. And us being made more into his image. When we come to the communion table, what a beautiful reminder. It's all his. And he's given it to us. In fact, let's just pause for a moment. Hopefully you were given the elements here of communion. From the one who created all things, from the dirt of the ground and from the breath of life, physical and spiritual coming together, knowing that sin had wreaked havoc in the world. The Son of God came, namely Jesus. And he said, it's going to be my body broken for you. And let's just pause right now and let's remember his life for ours. And in the same way, he took one of the cups of wine. And he said, this is my blood, my lifeblood, that will be poured out for you in the sins of the world, forming a new way of relationship with one another. And let's drink now together. Have you ever thought about the communion table being the greatest expression of a generous God? I hope we do. I hope we see the generous way of God in all of his ways, and that as you and I are simply faithful along the journey, and that's the third thing I just want to say, is the journey from desire to finishing is not about greatness, it's not about perfection, it's just simply about faithfulness. The call of faithfulness, I think, is a lost art in this world. Everybody wants to be awesome. The older I get, I just want to be faithful. Faithful with whatever potatoes he puts in my hand. And I want to offer you just a picture that I was reminded of as I was thinking about my stingy ways here. My friend Joe went to China in 2007. And the guide there led him into the absolute most remote part in the hills of this area to a village. And I wanted to show you, give a sense of the remoteness. Here's a picture of where they were headed. That big white building is a missionary place, but if you go into the actual village of Yezi, you'll find shacks, you'll find mud for, patching. You'll find that their annual income on average was $200. A place of just crazy need and poverty. And actually, just prior to that, it had been $13. So this is a place of absolute abject poverty. And my friend Joe and his friends, Tracy and the others, they go into this village and they meet a man named Mr. Nee. I believe this is a picture of Mr. Nee. And Mr. Nee comes up to them with a sack of potatoes. And he gestures to them. And with the translator says, will you take this sack with you to Kunming, 11 and a half hours away? And they said, well, sure, why? Well, because the pastor in Kunming had sent us shoes and clothing. And this is all that we have, but we just want to say thank you. And I want you to just think for a moment, when you live on $200 a day, how many things could you do with the potatoes that you think are yours? This was everything, maybe even more. And the sack was even bigger. And so Joe and his friends, they took this gift so much like what the Macedonians, the church in Macedonia, what Paul is asking of Corinth and what he's asking of you and what he's asking of me. Am I and are you this person or this person? I'm telling you, this is no way to live. This is a dead-end life. This leads to suffocation and isolation. This, in the words of Paul, leads to the life that is truly life. It is a venture, and it leads to dark places and big dips. And God, just know He is doing things underground in you. And I think some of us just need a reminder today. Am I going to be a fry clincher? Or am I going to be a potato giver? How many of you just want a reminder? Like, all right, I'm going to put this on my desk. I want to take this with me. I'm going to take this to work, and people are going to ask me about this. I'm going to, I don't know, but I need to practice the potato prayer. Whatever it is that I'm clutching, I'm going to trace it back and be reminded this goes back to the dirt of the earth and to the breath of life. Who is in? Who needs one? Okay. I want to throw things. Please catch. Please catch. Here you go. Here you go. Who else is in? Oh, we're going deep. Oh, we're going deep. Come on. Come on. You can still use it as metaphor, but I wouldn't need it. All right. Here we go. Going short. Going short. In fact, Estrella, would you come up and would you, in the spirit of Mr. Nee, would you come up and just start distributing this, right? And then when you grab it, just like do that so it makes me look strong. That'd be good. Thank you. That'd be great. And who else? Who else just needs a potato? Just a reminder, all that I have, my time, my talent. Yeah, and while the band is singing, Estrella is going to be walking around distributing that reminder that He is good, He is generous, and the best life is when we are too. If you're able, would you stand with us and sing?
Your vows a covenant unbroken. You made it known through history. Your love will never be unfaithful. You never walk out on me. You never walk out on me. I have no reason to doubt you. Who you have been, you'll always be. And though the future's still unfolding with everything I've seen, oh, how could I not believe that you are a promise keeper? Your word will never fail. My heart can trust you, Jesus. I won't be overwhelmed. My eyes are gonna see miracles and victories. Oh, you are a promise keeper. Your word will never fail. You will return all that's been stolen. There's nothing that you can't redeem. see your goodness right here, right now. And you know the ending before the beginning. And I know that you have worked all things out. I know, oh, I see your goodness in the land of the living. Oh, I see your goodness right here, right now. And you know the ending before the beginning. And I know that you have worked all things out. I know that you are a promise keeper. Your word will never fail. My heart will trust you, Jesus. I won't be overwhelmed. My eyes are gonna see miracles and victories. You are a promise keeper. Your word will never fail. I see your goodness in the land of the living. I see your goodness right here, right now. You know the ending before the beginning. And I know that you have worked all things out. I know I see your goodness in the land of the living. Oh, I see your goodness right here, right now. I know you know the ending before the beginning. And I know that you have worked all things out.
You clap your hands for the promise keeper. There's nobody like him. Jesus said to Peter in Matthew 16:18 that upon this rock we will build this church, and the very gates of hell cannot prevail against it. And that's a part of what Unshakable is all about. If the Lord builds his house, we just saw it last Sunday. He kept his promise. The care center has been built. But if he builds the house, simply nobody or nothing can tear it down. Let's proclaim this truth before we leave out today.
Done my own thing, the walls couldn't stand. Trusted my own strength, but it was sinking sand. So I put my ruins into your hands, and watch you restore them. Told me you can. Since the Lord builds that house, nobody can tear it down. Since the Lord builds that house, nobody can tear it down. When it's built
praise. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Before you leave today, if you have joined us on this unshakable journey, we want you to go out to the Connection Center, to the Unshakable Hub, and grab a t-shirt. And guess what? It's free $99. You cannot beat it. Go get a shirt and get more information about the unshakable journey. And if you are visiting for the first time and you're new, Westside in 4, same Connection Center. Learn 4 things in under 4 minutes about this great church and also receive a gift. And if you have the desire to go down in the water and be baptized in Jesus' name, there are deacons in red shirts in the foyer waiting to receive you with your questions. They have a change of clothes as well. And heaven will rejoice as well as Westside Family Church. Otherwise, church, this is the end of the road. We will see you next week. Stay warm and have an amazing week. God bless you.
And then you're like, oh, this is really hard. And then you're like, okay, I can do this. That curve is really sort of the curve of life.
It is true. And when I was thinking about it, I thought about it in the context of parenting the school year, because it's like we're not quite to the checkout, which is in the spring before spring break, because there's so few days off. But
exactly.
Well, thank you, Westside, for joining us online. I'm here with Lindsay, and just catch us up to speed where you are with the Unshakable journey. Have you been here through? It was a year ago that we started this. Well, the Unshakable started before earlier the year, praying and fasting through it. But tell us a little bit about your Unshakable journey.
Yeah, so I've been going to Westside for a few years with my family. And the interesting thing about the word unshakable for me was I needed that in heavy doses over the last year. And so, you probably haven't seen me around over the last year or so because I spent many Sundays in a hospital bed, not here at church, due to kind of some unique things in my life from a health perspective. So Unshakable has a few different meanings for me.
Sure. Well, let's get right into that, because Dan was talking about potatoes, and these potatoes are growing into the ground. Which potatoes are the best? I mean, come on.
For sure.
It's
and
incredible.
Like he's right, you can have them anyway, and I will take them any way they come.
For sure. So, but when I was thinking about this conversation in the context of your story, that these potatoes are only good if they're brought out of the dark, out of the ground, and into the light, and something happens with them. So have you been in, you kind of mentioned some health complications. Have you had a moment in your life where you're like, this is just dark and I don't know what to do with this?
Yes, for sure. The quick story is 10 years ago, I had sort of my first potato in the ground moment. And we all have things in life. I mean, I always say, no one ever gets to 90 and says nothing happened in their life that was challenging. So this is everybody's story. But my unique story is 10 years ago, tragic boating accident, had to have my left leg amputated. And from that, I learned a lot about having that potato shoved 10 feet in the ground and then trying to, work on getting out into the light. And then this past year, the hospital nights I was referencing, I was diagnosed, like I said, several years after my accident, with a rare disease that caused my lungs to be destroyed. So as I said in a recent book, I didn't have COVID. I wasn't a smoker, but my lungs were destroyed.
Yeah.
So I went through a process that ended up an amazing miracle of life, where I received a double lung transplant last year. So that's the context, but more importantly, the takeaway. So those were dark moments for sure. And I went through a lot of stuff that everybody would go through: sadness, depression, questioning. But, what I have found time and time again is not only the testimony and the faith journey, which I know we'll get to, but also for today is what I found is telling that story and telling how God was there for me, telling how people were there for me, giving of their time, their resources. All of those things have led me to believe that in the light, what works for me and I hope will work for others is tell your story, tell your struggles, tell your gratitude, tell your faith journey, and that ultimately kind of is one of the many things that can help bring you to the light.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I love that. Well, thank you. Well, we're so glad that you're here.
Me too.
First of all,
thank you, Ty.
Was there ever a moment where you're like, I already went through the leg thing. What is with the lung thing? Like, I already did the big thing. Like, my faith survived. Why am I going through this again?
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't personally think that, but everybody else did. So I would get questions constantly or comments like, oh my gosh, you've already gone through so much. And, I truly believe that God gives you the ingredients you need for the recipe that is your life. And I feel like one of the things that he taught me through my first journey, the leg journey, I call them leg gate and lung gate, but when I went through the leg journey, I think I learned there's no wisdom in asking why. And I think that's part of that ultimate surrender of just saying, I have a unique plan and I need to do my best to walk that plan. And I'm not saying I was perfect.
Sure.
Many times I was in my mind so, I guess angry that these things happened to me. But I tried to just not ask why and just believe that, darkness is a building season and make the best I can out of that.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's incredible. I don't think Jesus is calling us to be perfect. I
hope not, because I'm sure not.
Because I think what Dan was saying, I think was be faithful.
Yeah.
And how faithful you can be in that season, and certainly, that sounds very trying. So, what were some of your takeaways from Dan's message? Because other than I wanted a milkshake and fries.
Exactly. I was having like in and out flashbacks. I haven't been to one in years, but.
What were some of the things that you heard that rang true for you in this journey?
Yeah, I think this whole notion of giving and sharing with others, to me, what I was listening to and thinking about this morning is that's multi-dimensional. Yeah, he talked about some of this is about money. I mean, we all have to, when we can, help others because there are a lot of things that, frankly, in this world do require resources, like the center we're building and all that good stuff. But there's a lot of gifts you can give. And so what I have found is everybody has something to give at any given time. Some people have treasure in the sense of money. Some people have time. Like I had to, after my lung transplant, spend 3 months living in St. Louis because we don't do lung transplants here in Kansas City. And I had, at the time, now they're a couple years older, but I had, when I first diagnosed, 2 middle school kids and a husband that couldn't be with me for 3 months if we wanted our kids to have a normal life.
Right.
But people gave me their time. I had 12 different people spend a week with me because I had to have sort of a caretaker 24/7. What an amazing gift. So right now, if you feel like you're tapped out on your treasure, give your time to others. Some people love to pray. Some people love to cook. Some people, have good medical advice because they're a nurse or whatever. So what I see is, we've got a potato sitting here, as you see, which is just nice and metaphorical. But ask yourself, what do you have today in sort of your proverbial potato sack? And give. And what I always say now on the, part of the other side of this is, I truly hope that I can give as much as I've had to take.
Yeah. Well, that's so wonderful that, and to allow people to help you. I know sometimes we can be so like self-sufficient, like I'm going to get through this. And then we just realize like, it's really honoring other people to allow them to help you as well.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, kind of what Dan was talking about too, is like, or Randy even mentioned it last week. Hey, if there was somebody that gave all the money to fund this all the way to the end, that would be wonderful. But that's not the goal. The goal is to engage people and to have God do something in your life. Because I could feel it. I sat in both services so far, and when they showed the picture of everybody around the care center, I could feel people around me just go, I should have went to that. And I know that people are going to be saying in a year from now when the construction is going, like, I wish I was a part of that. So I don't want you to have that regret. And I'm not asking for you to write a huge check, but I think what you're saying is get involved in however you can, because this is going to be a line in the sand where we're going to say, we're here to take care of people, period.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited about that. Well, thank you for sharing. What else did Dan say aside from the fries that everybody was talking about?
Yeah, back to the fries. Well, I'll just say 2 things. One, I want to react to what you just said. I love what you said, which is letting people help you is honoring them. I'm totally going to steal that because that's how I feel. I don't know that I've ever articulated it that way.
Sure.
But I think, when you are used to being an able-bodied person and you're sick and you need help, or if you're in a hardship of any kind, you don't want to feel like a burden.
Right.
Nobody wants to feel like a burden. But I was driven to ask to relieve the burden from my husband and my kids. That was sort of my door into asking others. But I did find that people truly do want to help, that people that care about you, and they don't know how.
Right.
And we didn't love, meal drop-offs because we're like, oh, we feel bad if we don't eat it, but we don't like that food or whatever. But we found when we were just open about, gosh, this would really help, people are amazing and they want to. And so I'll just tell you right now, if you're scared to ask for help, Ty's exactly right. It is an honor for others, especially if you're willing to help when it's your time to be called. But the other thing I was telling you kind of when we logged on today that struck me was that curve from, desire to give. It reminded me of a version of a healing process or a grieving process, because there's that initial sort of optimism, or in the grieving process, it's kind of denial. Like when I had my leg situation, the next morning when I wake up in the hospital and they tell me, I'm sorry, your leg had to be amputated. Everyone around me was freaking out, and all I thought was, I didn't die. Because I wasn't sure when I went into the surgery. And I was like, okay, I can handle it. It's going to be fine. But then I went through learning to walk and all the checkout kind of phases. And then I started to realize that, okay, that hopeful reality. I remember ziplining on a vacation not that long after the whole accident. That's a whole other story. But while I was in the air, I thought, okay, things are going to be okay. And from then I've discovered, God has put me in this place to, do my best to help others. And so that curve that he talked about today, you can apply that to so many things. So if you're in the trough, just remember, no matter what it is, there's probably a dip up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was even thinking it doesn't make sense, but if you inverted that might even be more accurate, because right now we're pushing the ball up the hill, right? We're trying to get momentum, but as soon as we get past that checkout phase and we move into the realism and then the gains, I think it's really going to start rolling, and we're going to have to try to catch up to it, because then there's going to be new people that are onboarding and like, oh wow, this is happening. I thought they were just talking about it, but no, this is really happening. And to what you said, like, we do have an incredible counseling center currently that is serving. That is, I probably shouldn't say, but I think it is fully booked up right now. Like it's.
There's a need.
And my wife is sitting next to me, and everything that Dan's saying, she's like, "Amen," because she's a counselor too.
Yeah.
And
she sees it.
Those people just have a heart, and we did a trauma training just recently this week, and those people just that's their calling, is to care for people, and it's so honoring to them. And they just go, when people come in, they go, this is what it's here for. I'm not here for the paperwork and the recognition and the degrees or whatever it takes to get there. I'm here to serve these people and to listen and be present in those moments. I don't know if you've ever sat across from somebody that's really listening to you. Yeah. It's so incredible and life-giving.
For sure. Well, tell her thank you. During my hardest days, I actually went to a counselor. It was a Christian counselor I was lucky to have access to, and it made a huge difference, because at that time, I didn't know if I could crawl out of that proverbial hole.
Sure.
Or the inverse, get over to the part of the mountain where you feel like you're walking downhill.
Well, and that's the thing, and to liken it to the grief analogy, it's not as linear, like Dan was saying, as you would like, oh, I'm going to go through denial and acceptance and bargaining.
Right.
It's like they're all different sizes and they're in all different orders. It's like the cup shuffle, you
right.
know.
On the mountain, there's a lot of switchbacks.
You're like, what is it today?
Hike.
Yeah, you're just climbing it, and you just go, all right, what is it today? What can I do today to be generous what God has given me? And like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be financial. There's plenty of needs to serve here at Westside, whether it's in the kids ministry or the student ministry or greeting people. There's people directing traffic out there. In your neighborhood, like you said, there's somebody around you that has a need, and just if you've never felt the desire to be generous, like Dan very courageously admitted, step out and meet somebody's need this week.
Yeah.
And I have zero preference what that is, but just meet somebody's need somehow.
Just to add to that or end on that, one of my favorite quotes that I got really into, reading a lot of different things, and one of my favorite quotes was from Arthur Ashe, the tennis player, and he just said, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And I love that, because it's easy to sit there and think, well, when I get this, I'll start, or I'll help somebody, or all the things. But if you just say, okay, on Monday or tomorrow, or like you said, just start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And if everybody does that, it adds up.
Yeah. Well, was there somebody in your life that modeled generosity for you?
Yeah, this will make me cry. Whenever you talk about people you love, it makes you cry. But I'll try to hold back. But
no, you're good.
My dad is very much like that. And both my parents are very generous. But he was the kind of person that, could hardly watch, or still is the kind of person that can hardly watch one of those commercials where, you just see like, please give, or people are suffering. Like he wanted to give everything we have. And I feel that way.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm glad that you had that reaction instead of the opposite one. Be like, my dad gave everything away. What is happening here? Because I certainly can.
No, they're a good partner. We always had everything we needed, partners. But his heart always wanted to be there for sure.
Oh, that's
Both
incredible.
my parents are very generous.
So seeing that with your parents, how are you modeling that for your kids?
Yeah, I really tried to give them opportunities to either witness or participate in giving opportunities, whether it's, and by the way, I'm not perfect, we could all do more. Yes, they get busy with sports and school, and then you sit there and say, oh, we should be doing more. So I'm going to be real about it.
Yeah.
But we also try to say, we're going to have them go hand out food or pack snacks for backpacks, whatever they can do that are allowed to at their ages.
Yeah.
And when we do give our money, we make sure they know about it.
Right.
And we talk about it and we say, hey, here's the thing we're giving to, and here's what they do, and here's why this is important to Dad and I. And just, I think it comes back to all parenting. It's all about modeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And those back snacks, I don't know if you guys have ever packed it, but Westside would organize these events where you would pack meals for kids to take home. And my wife's first job as a counselor in a school was one of those schools that received those. And so it's really affecting because
Yes.
she knew exactly the kids to give it to because they would go home and potentially not eat the entire weekend.
Exactly.
So
And for kids to think about that, and to think that, gosh, I'm helping somebody not be hungry. That's like a really direct line from desire to give. That's a short line that they can really absorb.
Yeah, for sure. And an immediate impact. And I understand with the building, that's like a longer timeline that's going to take to get there. So if you need something, if you need a quicker fix in your generosity, yeah, just go out and serve somebody today. So Lindsay, what I usually wrap up by asking this question is, what would be a takeaway for somebody who's kind of new to their faith out of this message? And what would be a takeaway for somebody who's been following Jesus for a long time, 20 or 30 years? What would be a challenge for both of those parties out of this message?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'd say when you're newer to your faith, to just have the courage to begin. And, whether it feels odd or outside of your comfort zone or something that you're not ready to do yet, it kind of goes back to just start where you are, use what you have, do what you can, do something and feel how that feels. And, if you're inclined, say a prayer and say, hey, please help me be more generous. Help me learn more. I mean, when I went through my journeys, there were several times I humbly prayed, like, help me have more faith. Help me be bigger than the little mustard seed.
Right.
So just begin and reflect on what you did.
Yeah.
And I think for those of you who are, definitely the models on the solid rock, I think part of that is helping others along the way and maybe putting yourself out of your comfort zone to talk a little bit more. I find a lot of people who are very generous are very humble and private about that. And I think that's good. And I think the Bible tells us, to not be boastful. It's not about our story. But I do think there's a way to model and have others see it where you're not trying to shine some light on yourself. You're not doing it for credit, but you're being mindful about how you can influence others to really follow your example. And that's a hard line to find, but I think that's another thing to just pray on and say, how can I inspire others without trying to selfishly glorify myself?
Yeah.
Because there's so many amazing role models that I think they could help inspire others in the way that's authentic to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's events coming up where you could be like, hey, I'm going to this. Do you want to ride with me? Or you could just help make that on-ramp a little bit lower, and people could just be like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that was a thing, that going out and serving at this equine therapy would be helpful. I didn't know how understaffed they were. I thought if you have horses, you're a millionaire, stuff like that.
And maybe you don't want to post, hey, I gave X dollars to Y thing. Like, I wouldn't want to do that either.
Sure.
But like you said, share a picture of you, and where it's subtly inspiring somebody else, like, oh, I should have been at that event. I should go do that. Where once again, it's not about your glory, but it's about inspiring others, because there are some amazing role models around here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. People are responding to it, and I know that you've written a book about your journey, and I'm sure this isn't the last time we get to speak to you here at Westside. So thank you to your dad and your family for really inspiring that generosity, and to continue to work towards a place where people have access to the resources that they need. I think that's really important.
And it really does feel good to give.
Yeah. And thank you to all the people that sat with you 12 weeks. That's a lot.
Yes. And it's not very fun times. Yeah, I couldn't go to restaurants. I couldn't do anything fun, just to sit and hang out. But
that's what
the
it
true
takes.
gift of God.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Just being present can be a present for sure.
For sure.
All right. Wonderful. Well, wherever you're at on your journey, we're praying that you take a step or you help make a step for somebody else.
Yep.
You can also use that one. That's a good one.
Take a step, make a step. That's good, Ty. I like that.
I'm going to preach the next service. Lindsay and I are going to go out there. We're going to take this over.
We're
Watch
kicking
out,
Dan
Tim.
off. Just wait.